He was born with the 20th century. He took part in the electrification, went through 2 world wars, explored the outer space, and was one of those who built the computer. He was born by the 20th century, and he made it work. In the mid-30s, the Soviet government classified the scientific work by Andranik Iosifyan. During the war, he managed a military plant making weapons and combat equipment. But even after the war, the work by the Armenian scientist remained classified. He was one of the chief designers of the military and space rockets, one of those whose names were never pronounced during their lifetime. The first spacecraft were running on the unique electrical equipment designed by Iosifyan. Experts knew his name, along with Kurchatov, Korolev, and Keldysh. Who was Andranik Iosifyan? What were his merits behind his multiple awards from the government and state prizes, Lenin prizes, the Hero of Labor, the Medal for Defending Moscow, 4 Orders of Lenin, 2 Orders of Red Banner, and October Revolution? He was elected Vice President of the Armenian Academy of Sciences and held the rank of academician. Andranik Iosifyan was born in Nagorno-Karabakh in 1905. His familial house in the village of Tsmakaok has remained intact. Father was a priest. Like the grandfather, taught theology and the Armenian language. When he was 5, the family moved to what is now the city of Buynaks, near Makhachkala. His father was a priest in the Armenian church. In 1918, a massacre of the Armenians started. The family fled to Turkestan, then returned to Karabakh. Next year, Karabakh was under the Soviet power. Since the 15-year-old Andranik was the only one in the village talking Russian, he was given a Komsomol membership card and 3 rifles with an instruction to gather a squad and defend the village against the bandits. In 1922, Andranik Iosifyan volunteered to the Red Army. He was a telephone operator, worked as an electrician on the railway. At 20, Iosifyan entered the Baku Polytechnic. Here, his natural abilities to invention was fully developed. When still a student, he sent his draft invention to Moscow. It was an electric screw gun. The technical headquarters of armaments got interested. Iosifyan was invited to All Union Electrotechnical Institute, where he worked under academician Shenfer and Mitkevich, whom he recognized as his teachers for the rest of his life. Throughout the years at the Electrical Institute, Iosifyan displayed himself as a brilliant engineer and inventor, and soon became chief of laboratory and then of a design office. In the 30s, the Soviet Union made attempts at designing helicopters. Iosifyan was one of the first to produce a tethered electrical helicopter. Its weight was unprecedented, only 65 kilograms. The screw of the helicopter was 2 meters in diameter and was powered by electric motors fed through a cable. The helicopter was designed for reconnaissance and control of artillery fire. It was tested in 1941, but work was terminated by war. In 1935, Iosifyan led a laboratory of military electronics under the patronage of Marshal Tukhachevsky. In those years, the country's leadership did not spare means for new weapons. Soon, he developed a system for the Navy to aim heavy guns using a heat-seeking direction finder, capturing a ship at a distance of 8 kilometers using infrared sensors. This work was awarded the Stalin Prize. Iosifyan, however, was deprived of the awards and the laboratory of his creation. His father, a former priest, was arrested and shot in Baku. Then, according to routine, the son was suspended from the party and demoted to a rank-and-file scientist. In those years, Iosifyan made up a contactless electrical machine. He improved the so-called Celsin that transmitted the synchronous motion to another machine, that invention being equal in significance to inventing telephone or telegraph. The rights for producing the contactless Celsins were immediately purchased by England, Germany, US, France, and Italy. After those exclusive events, Iosifyan was restored in the party and was allowed to organize a laboratory. At a World Fair in New York in 1939, the USSR showed a mock-up metallurgical plant demonstrating a production cycle of melting metal. The visitors watched automatic traffic of model steam engines and cars on the mock-up railways. That engineering design was carried out by Iosifyan. For the first time, he built a linear AC motor. A running electromagnetic field was induced along the railroad bed, pulling a train. This principle was later developed to high-speed rail transport systems in Germany and Japan. In 1940, Iosifyan sustained a doctoral thesis and became a professor. He was 35 years old and had authored 13 inventions. In 1941, Iosifyan was appointed director of a newly created plant, number 627, to produce electrical appliances for military purposes. Along with a young engineer, Alexander Kazantsev, author of science fiction stories, Iosifyan created remotely controlled small tanks designed as an anti-tank weapon in case of Moscow being captured by the Nazis. In 1942, those small tanks destroyed 9 enemy tanks on the Kerch Peninsula. In 1944, while breaking through the blockade of Leningrad, this weapon suppressed enemy pillboxes that had wiped out a complete Soviet division. The manufacturing plant led by Iosifyan produced specialized military equipment during the war: sticking magnetic mines, detonators hidden in domestic appliances, power supplies for guerrilla radios. As instructed by the defense commissars, plant number 627 in a fantastically short time produced a radar system for aiming the anti-aircraft guns. In 1942, Andranik Iosifyan was awarded the Order of Lenin for his work for the defense of the country. After the war, the plant was converted into a research institute, later renamed to the All-Union Institute of Electromechanics. The scientific center established by Andranik Iosifyan played a huge role in the development of the Soviet science and electrical industries. Iosifyan, I heard this name for the first time as a student. He was mentioned as the inventor of a Selsin. As to his contribution in science, I think in electrical engineering he is #1 in the country. When he became chief executive of Plant 627, producing appliances for the war, he was the man who was at the right place and at the right time. That was a top production unit. He recruited the best scientists ever. In 1948, 2 U.S. aircraft made emergency landing in the Soviet Union. The best bombers of World War II, the Flying Fortresses, were packed with up-to-date equipment. Stalin ordered to make an exact copy of the aircraft. The aircraft had to be disassembled down to the last screw and fully replicated, starting with the cables, elements and materials, up to the total image of the plane and the system of fire control. There were several turrets with automatic guns controlled from a single center. Their movement was synchronized using servo drives. Iosifyan was a classic of this matter, having invented the servo Selsin for synchronizing movements in electric systems. This assignment was committed to Tupolev. However, besides the engineering development, the aircraft had to be equipped with a system of gun control and other electrical appliances. In those years, the Soviet manufacturing units were unable to do anything like that. However, Iosifyan started developing the needed electrical gear. The ministry was in opposition to this work. Then he wrote a letter to Malenkov, a member of Politburo, which resulted in a decree enabling the work to be done. That work was brilliantly executed. As a result, the country obtained new varnishes, enameled wires, impregnating oils and compounds. It was then that the aviation electrical engineering was born. Later it was branched off to other places with great designers, but it was all started with Iosifyan. After 1 year, in 1949, the new aircraft Tu-4 already took part in a parade on the Red Square. For that feat, Tupolev was awarded the Stalin Prize, first degree, while Iosifyan managed once again to fall into disfavor with the Kremlin high priests and received nothing. For that he got nothing but bumps, since those were the years of struggle against cosmopolitanism. Under cosmopolites, they meant Jews, of course. Those specialists were able, talented, working people, but he was told to fire them all. Iosifyan never did that. Iosifyan took those talented Jews and transferred them to remote premises, all those professors, doctors and their assistants, and they later proved their efficiency by making significant contribution to science and industries. For that action, Iosifyan was severely reprimanded, and of course he never got the prize that he had well merited, being an undisputed leader of the Institute operations. In 1945, after the war, Iosifyan made his first official visit to Armenia. The Armenian Academy of Sciences elected him corresponding member. At that time, he was a recognized authority in science. He made a report on the prospective development of electrical engineering in Armenia. Iosifyan made a report to gathering of electrical engineers. He showed a poster on the forthcoming development of electrical engineering in Armenia, indicating 8 industrial units to be built. It was extremely interesting, but some skeptics said it was all fantasy. However, in a few years' time, Iosifyan managed to implement those plans and even more. Living in Moscow, Iosifyan used his connections and authority to substantiate the need to create a network of research and development units and research facilities for manufacturing the state-of-the-art electrical equipment. There were large quantities of machine tools and other equipment captured from Germany. Quite a lot of it was coming to Armenia. We had to train special staff to deal with all that material in a very short time. In 1956, Iosifyan established a branch of the Old Union Research Institute of Electrical Mechanics that was under his leadership at the time. Many of those developments are unique and up to the present are used to control the mobile missile systems. All models of those developments were produced by the Armelektro's manufacturing plant. It was a very large industrial unit producing 40% of mobile